ahead and call the meeting order. Note that the agenda was properly posted. The first item on the agenda is the approval or disapproval of the minutes from the February 18th, 2015 meeting.
I only see one item for correction, and that is on the fifth item on the agenda to approve the request for the Speedway. It says a motion was made by Kelly Parker to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you caught that. I will fix that.
Any other corrections to minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
I have a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as corrected.
Henry?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Kelly?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Motion passed. Next item is the approval or disapproval of the February financial report.
Okay, starting off with, we have $593,084, $4,220 for the flagpole wiring, $1,710 for the Oklahoma Today magazine, $4,000 for the Chamber of Commerce Tourism Center secretary, $82,500 for the Alva gun range, $4,225 for the Northwest Oklahoma Show Pick Circuit, $17,650 for the Big Cruisin' Car Show, $6,228 for the Alva Speedway, $500 for Future, $2,500 for Standing, which leaves us $469,467.84.
I signed
Yeah, you signed
the Speedway.
the Speedway for $2,000, I think around $2,000, and then the Northwest Oklahoma Show Pick Circuit also.
I thought I signed
Yeah.
a couple of those. That was done after this was prepared. I just signed those, I think,
Just last week, yeah.
Thursday, I think.
Yep.
Okay. If you notice, there is a report that you normally receive that is missing from this month that details the hotel and tax receipts by quarter. That report is being revised. I'm talking to Joe Don. We should all sign a confidentiality agreement to see that information. And so at this point in time, the report is being revised to take the names off that report, and it'll just say Hotel 1, Hotel 2, Hotel 3. Then also, I asked him to show that so the headings, the quarterly headings correlate with the city's fiscal year. So it would probably say like first quarter, September 30th, 2014. Then the other item on there was that he will report the receipts in the quarter in which they relate to, and not the quarter they're collected in. So that receipts that are collected, say, for the quarter ending March, or third quarter ending March 31st, which are collected by April 30th, those will be reported in the third quarter, which would be the third quarter of the city. So that way so no matter when a hotel makes its payments, all the hotel payments will be in the same quarter, so we can kind of see a correlation between the different hotels and so forth. We just won't have the names on there anymore. Joe Don did not have those revisions ready for us, so those should be back in our packets next month. And if you have any questions on that, I would entertain those and try to answer those the best I can.
question about the
Yep.
finances that Jody just read. The flagpole wiring, should that come off this month?
It should come off April 30th. You have 12 months from the last day of the month in which it was approved. So it was approved April 16, 2014, and so they would have until April 30th of 2015 to submit that. That way it's a full 12 months.
Is there any communication with that group that they're
I
nearing?
have talked to him about it, so.
Yeah, that Arden's deal.
Does it intend to do it, or?
I think some of it has been done, so.
It's been done.
Yeah.
Because the wiring's there, the
Yeah.
flagpole's lit up, whatever you call that shed thing is, I think it has electricity to it.
Mhm.
So, and the work's been done for probably at least 3 months.
Yeah.
And the Oklahoma Today magazine, usually she's submitted that,
Ah.
I know it's kind of,
Well, I'll tell you that. Okay, so we have the money that's going to be sent to Haley. She did all of the laying the articles out, and so she has waited for the last 3 for us to pay her. So it's going to be in one big check instead of doing every month a different invoice. So I should have that soon because it's coming up to an end too.
Yeah, that would have to be paid by May 31st.
Yeah.
So that would,
I said no matter what, I want it by April. So.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions on financials?
if you have not seen the Oklahoma Today magazine this month, there is a large article in there about Alva.
Okay, good. If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the February financial report.
I move that we approve the February financial report as written.
Do I have a second? Second. And moved and seconded to approve the February financial reports.
Henry,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Terry.
Motion passed. Thank you. Next item is the approval or disapproval of the funds for the Nescatonga Arts Festival. We're your partner in crime.
She leaves town and leaves me here with this. She's on vacation or something. I think you have in front of you particularly the 3rd page, which she has lined out as best we can. The revenue for the entire event, the expenses for the entire event, and the expense items requested from the tourism committee there in the 3 columns.
Why are you asking for a 33% increase in funds this year?
It's just about the cost of advertising is, we didn't have quite enough last year for what we thought we wanted to do, and she's added some, she did tell me this, online digital advertising, I think it's been added that wasn't there before, I think. And things like cash awards to artists is an estimation, because if we don't have, like, we have allotted a 1st, 2nd, 3rd prize in oil paintings, and we might not have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd prize, in each of the categories that we have. So that's an estimation. We buy ribbons new just by what we use each year. We replace just the ones that we use, so that's an estimation. Special entertainment is also an estimation. We didn't use any of that last year. We didn't bring in anybody that we paid extra for entertainment.
About how many people out of town, including participants, come to this time?
How many people out of town, including
Yeah. In other words,
participants?
if you take your total, the participants and the people who come to the event, if you subtract out the people from Alva,
Mhm.
about how many would you have?
I'd say, if you're talking participants, if you're meaning the people that rent booths, that bring crafts and
Yeah,
artists.
And people who out of town who come to come to the event also. I mean, I'm looking at, participants also, they have motel rooms, so I think they're counted as spectators, so to speak. So how many
Yes.
spectators and participants are from out of town?
I wish I could give you a firm answer. I would say on the booth rental ones, that way over half of those are from out of town. I would imagine 75% of those.
And how many, what number is that?
We run 60, 70 booths,
So about 50 people.
50 people maybe 45 to 50, I would say.
Okay, and about how many of the people who come to visit those booths would you say come from out of town?
Maybe a third of them.
Okay, and how many people
We don't know that either, see.
how many people would you estimate come to Nescatonga?
I've indicated here 500 plus.
Yes, I would say it may be a little higher than that on a good year. I would have guessed maybe, we don't have any way of knowing, we don't sell any tickets, or we don't have a gate that they come through, or anything
So
else.
are you saying that maybe 500 people from out of town?
I would say so. I think that would be a safe estimate, yes.
Okay. So even if we take into consideration the participants, you're spending about $20 a person for advertising to get them here. That seems, at least in my opinion, that the advertising is not very effective. Because if you look at any merchant, if they spent $20 advertising for every person that came in that door, there certainly wouldn't be any profit left. And so I guess my question is I guess it's a twofold question, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I'm just trying to be a good steward of the tourism dollars. One is the money not being spent properly or in the right way to advertise and to attract people here, or has the event outlived its usefulness? And that people just don't come to these things anymore, no matter how many dollars of advertising is spent.
I don't know the for sure answer to either one of your questions, and I hope that no is the answer to either one of them. Last year, we went indoors because of the predicted rain. It rained pretty sufficiently the night before. It didn't actually rain, but the decision had to be made the night before we go to the fairgrounds. We're really, really crowded out there. We could barely get booths in there, and our quilts were hanging on top of each other, and it's not a real good situation. It's much better outdoors. I don't know. I get phone calls from them at the chamber, giving them my phone number, and those are all out of town, of course. People asking about booths, people asking about coming. I don't know if there's a better way to spend advertising dollars.
Who do you advertise with?
We advertised with 3 newspapers, maybe 4 last year, and I think she's about to give up on one of them. I think we do of course, all the Alva paper, the Enid paper, the Woodward paper, and we did, I'm thinking Wichita, a paper out of Wichita last year that Rachel did. We go through arts and crafts ones too that are kind of almost freebies, not quite freebies, but that come out. That the quilt shop over here, for instance, has a little bi-monthly newspaper, and we advertise in places like that by a small amount of advertising.
And where's your radio advertising?
Alva, Woodward, and Enid.
before us. Did you explore other avenues for paying for your expenses other than tourism? You know, paying for 81% is a little bit higher than what we do for most groups. And did you explore any of that this year? Did you look at any other revenue sources?
No, we didn't. We got $1,000 from them. And I think I may have told you this before, but it took so many hours. Joyce Bender and I did that, and mostly Joyce prepared that grant. And she turned to me when we got through and she said, if you'll write a check for $500, I will for $500 for next year. We won't have to do this, and that's what we've done. So it just wasn't worth our time. And they asked the same kind of questions, that how many people are going to be here? And it's even more detailed than that. You know, how many are under the age of 21? How many are Native American? How many are, you know, and that it's all just almost a lesson in fiction writing, you know, because we can guess at those things, but we don't have any way. I don't think it's outlived its time. I certainly hope it hasn't. We're the longest continuously running arts and crafts show in Oklahoma. We're not the oldest, but we're the longest continuously running. Once it started in 1969, it has been held every year.
Well, you know, at $20 a head for advertising, you know, I would ask you to look to see where you're advertising and where you get, you can attract more people for the dollars of
For the same,
advertising.
yes, for the dollars. We will try to do that.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm just trying to think of, let's say the car show, how many people they attract and how many dollars they spend on advertising, what that comes out per head.
What that would come out for.
And you know, I wish Norval's here, he'd probably tell us. But I just kind of concerned for the number of people that come, the amount of advertising that you're doing, just seems out of whack a bit. Any other questions for Charlotte? If no one has any questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the Neston Arts Festival request not to exceed $12,300.
I make a motion we approve the funds for the Nescatonga Arts Festival not to exceed $12,300.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request for $12,300.
Henry,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Terry.
Motion passed. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
The next item on the agenda is approval or disapproval on the recommendation of the Tourism Committee to the City Council to engage an auditor for the purpose of auditing hotel, motel, tourism tax receipts. Give you a little bit of background on that. I met with Joe Don last week. The tourism tax has been in play, I think, for 20 years. Since that time, we've not done any audits of any business, any of the hotels and bed and breakfast, as if they are reporting their tax properly. There's been, with the way the reports have been in the past, there's been a time or two where we didn't think things were being collected properly, and I've talked to Joe Don about that, and of course it's his call whether to follow up on that or not ours. But at his suggestion, since the tourism tax now generates several $100,000 a year, that he felt it would be a good idea for this to engage an auditor to actually make the recommendation to the city council to engage an auditor to audit the hotel motel tax receipts at some time within probably the next year to look at that. anybody might have on that.
Do we think this would be something that would be a decision to be made every year, or do we think we could maybe set a standard for an annual review or every other year or something like that?
Well, if you could tell me what the results of the audit would be, I would give you a recommendation. My opinion, and it's just my opinion, is that if the audit's done and nothing is found, maybe 3 or 4 years before we do another one. If we do the audit and we find, there's a lot of problems, then it may be something we do every year for a few years till we get to a better result. So, I don't know. I mean, it's something we'd have to look at the results before we really could come to conclusion as to do something like that. Any other?
And what, are we going to audit this year's receipts or previous years? How far back are we going to go?
That's up to the auditor to make that call, not us. You can't really, in an audit situation, you really can't set parameters for what the auditor is going to do or not do. That's the city council's discretion as to how far back they want to audit. My guess is they will probably either pick a fiscal year or a calendar year and audit those, or a certain number of quarters. I don't know. It's been 30-some years since I've done any auditing. It's not something I really enjoy. But that's really going to be up to the auditor to decide what, because we're not really looking at, it's not like doing a financial audit where you look at a year end. We're just looking at a time frame. And each quarter really can sit independently of each other. So the auditor may decide to look at 1 quarter, may look at 2. Yeah, it kind of depends upon what the parameters the city council wants to engage the auditor for. Any other questions? Terry, you have any questions?
Sounds really vague to me, and obviously I don't care for it. So, I mean, I think that the parameters not being defined at this point, it makes it difficult for me to support anything like this.
Well, if you set when you engage an auditor to audit your financial statements, if you tell the auditor that he can only look at this or he can't look at this, then you no longer have an audit. You have something else. And that auditor cannot give a report on those financial statements. So you really can't define parameters unless you're going to, unless you do what's called agreed upon procedures, which you might find in certain cases. And that may be the type of audit that we really end up with, is an agreed upon procedures audit. And I would guess that would be what we're looking at, where we engage an auditor to look at only a specific item in the city. And so, but we need to, as far as what quarters they look at or how long they look at, there's still a process to go through as to getting this approved by the city council, engaging an auditor. It may be 3 months, it may be 9 months before we get an auditor engaged to do that, because they have other projects as well. So to say that we want them to look at this quarter of this year, we may be asking them to really go too far in the past, which really puts a burden on the hotel, because they have to dig up really old records instead of current records. And so I think if to put parameters like what they're going to look at and so forth would be detrimental in both. It would be like having the IRS come in and say, well, we're going to audit your interest expense next year. Well, your interest expense is going to be right to the penny then. And we're, I can't, so we really can't, part of an audit is, it is what it is, and you really can't say this is what we're gonna look at.
Well, we're really, because an audit of any business is, if the business on its own, we're going to do it, it would be wholly comprehensive, but we're really only talking about the hotel's obligation according to the ordinance for the sales tax.
Yeah, we're, obviously, we don't have the authority to audit a business. We only have the authority to audit the motel tax. Just like the Oklahoma Tax Commission, we had the authority to audit the sales tax. We're not gonna audit the sales tax. We're gonna audit the motel tax.
That's not what I meant to say, but that's what I meant to say.
So, that would be the limit of that scope.
And it's defined in the ordinance pretty well, isn't it?
It is defined that if I think back through the ordinance, that I believe the city clerk has the responsibility for collecting and administering and auditing any business's sales tax. I think that says something like that.
Which in itself is an audit.
Pardon?
Correct. Which in itself, they monitor our sales tax, which in itself, that tells what our sales are, which is an audit.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions?
I move that we approve the recommendation by the Tourism Committee to the City Council to engage an auditor for the purpose of auditing hotel, motel, tourism tax receipts.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the recommendation to go before council to engage an auditor to audit the hotel, motel tax receipts.
Henry.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Terry.
No.
Motion passed. Next item on the agenda is approval of disapproval and the funding of the auditor for the purpose of auditing hotel, motel, tourism tax receipts. Unfortunately, it's difficult to know what it's going to cost. And so we kind of have to go at this blind, that we have to put our faith in the city council, that they're not going to, spend $100,000 of our money doing an audit. It's going to be some reasonable amount. But we do, since we are only one of two committees that can spend funds other than the city council, we have to approve the funding for the city council to spend that money. And it would come out of the tourism tax, our funds to do that audit. Any questions on that? Do you have anything to add?
No, we would obviously go out for bid on the project and solicit competitive bids from auditing firms that do this type of work. So it wouldn't be, you just go up and pick, we're gonna take the best qualified bid for the job, the lowest and best bid. It wouldn't be something that we would just blindly go out and find somebody to go do. We would find somebody that does this type of audit and specializes in this type of audit.
Any other questions?
Is this likely something, you touched on it, but is this likely something that'll be a next fiscal year expense probably and not this fiscal year?
Probably.
Probably, because it's not in our budget this year. We'd have to budget it for next year to have it in there.
There's a certain amount of solicitation time that we go about. If we got it, I would anticipate this being a next fiscal year expense.
I move that we approve the funding for an auditor for the purpose of auditing the hotel, motel, tourism tax receipts.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the